with a bit of decoupage, some distressing, a Mod Podge image transfer, and some pretty flowers, we think this cute little centerpiece and sign are a fun craft to brighten up those gloomy winter days. Hi creative friends, I'm Jane from Sustain My Craft Habit and welcome back to our channel. It's a few days into the new year and after the hustle and bustle of the holidays, we're enjoying a little bit of downtime. At the same time, we are kind of craving those warmer spring days already. Yep, I know we are not winter people. So we thought for this craft this week that we'd show you how to make a pretty centerpiece that, will be beautiful through the winter, even spring, and well into the summer. Now this craft is actually part of our February Creative Habit craft box, but the techniques I'm going to show you, you can use on a number of different types of projects. So I started with this little wood caddy and I painted it first with a little bit of teal paint. And if you notice, I used a teal acrylic paint and I just painted kind of around the edges of the box and the slats. You could find similar caddies to these on Amazon as well as in your local craft store, but this one does come with almost a shiplap effect on the side. So after that teal paint mostly dried, I painted the whole thing with a coat of white paint, which will create kind of the foundation for the rest of the craft. So I didn't actually get to painting the inside of the caddy, but obviously you could take the time to do that as well. Once I had finished painting the surface, I just used my heat tool to help dry the paint a little bit faster. And then I took a little bit of sandpaper and sanded away the edges of the caddy. So everywhere that had a little ridge or an edge, I lightly brushed with my sandpaper to reveal that pretty teal underneath, because that's why I had painted it first with a little teal, just to give it a bit more texture. Okay, now that the caddy was painted, it's time to embellish. And I decided to use this pretty bird napkin for the two sides of the caddy and then to do a Mod Podge image transfer onto the front and back panels. So after removing the extra plies from the napkin to just be left with that single ply, I positioned the napkin where I wanted it to be and then used a very thin coat of Mod Podge on the surface and placed the napkin into there. I then used my little bit of sandpaper to help cut around the outside to remove the excess of the napkin. It makes it easier than just trying to cut it with scissors to size. And then I repeated this process on the other side of the caddy using a slightly different section of the napkin. Okay, now it was time to add on one of these cute farmhouse phrases. We have this printable available over at sustainmycrafthabit.com, and each one has 3 different designs. So I decided to do a different design on each side of the caddy. One says bloom with grace, the other is, I think, farmhouse flower garden. So I cut that out. These were printed on my inkjet printer, and then I applied a coat of Mod Podge on there, and while the Mod Podge was still wet, I placed the images with the image side down onto the surface. Now this is why it's really important for your images to be reversed, because when you put the image onto your surface, it will be backwards. So you don't want the phrase when you're done to be in the wrong direction. So while those transfers were drying, and ideally you want to leave it overnight to make sure that it's completely dry, I then filled my caddy with some pretty flowers. I put a little bit of floral foam in the bottom and then these lovely faux magnolia blooms and just filled in as many as would fit. It's about as simple as the arrangement as it gets, and you can obviously use whichever flowers you'd like. All of the supplies that I'm showing in this craft in this video today are part of our February Creative Habit craft box, which will be available for a limited time. So it includes the surfaces, the paints, the flowers, the image transfer, and everything, as well as instructions. Okay, so now it's time to rub the paper off of that image transfer. So all I'm using here is cloth that I've wet with water, and you want to soak that paper, and then once the paper is soaked, you simply rub the surface paper right off. And so the ink from the print actually seeps into the Mod Podge, which is underneath, and the Mod Podge is stuck to your surface, and that will stay on there, whereas the paper from the back side of the image is being rubbed off. And so this is such a fun way to do any sort of image transfer. This is a black and white one, but we've done this technique using a color transfer as well. It's recommended that you use a laser printer to print these images, but we're using our inkjet and didn't have any problem. Finally, I applied one last coat of Mod Podge to seal that design in there, and it looks so pretty with the farmhouse phrases on the front and back, and then the bird napkin on the side. So next we're going to use these jumbo craft sticks as well as the similar techniques that we used for the Caddy to make a really cute complimentary sign that you can put up as well. And this is a second printable that we also have available over at Sustain My Craft Habit. But I started by painting the outer edges of these extra jumbo craft sticks with the teal paint and then letting that dry. And then I painted over that with some white acrylic paint. I used actually 2 coats to get full coverage. As with the Caddy, once the white paint dried, I used a bit of sandpaper to distress the edges of each of those craft sticks to reveal that pretty teal color underneath. I was pretty aggressive with my sanding because I really wanted this to have a nice distressed texture. Once all the sanding was done, I just used a damp rag to wipe off all the dust, the paint dust. Okay, now it was time to turn those craft sticks over to the flip side to assemble them all together. I used 2 other craft sticks to kind of brace them and simply glue my hot glue gun to put the pieces together. Okay, now my surface is all done, and then I chose this Flower Market design to transfer on there. And again, I coated the printed surface with my Mod Podge and then flipped that down, face down, onto the surface. After pressing that in place, I let it dry completely overnight. So then, as with the Caddy, we just used a little bit of water and a wet rag, to rub the paper off of the backing of the design. And this worked really well. You just want to make sure that the paper is fully wet. It does look like the black ink from the printable starts to bleed a bit. I was worried about this, but then if you later take another area of your wet rag with some clean water and wipe that off, it does come off so that it leaves a pretty clean image transfer. Not bad for just a printout with my inkjet printer. If you find that your image ends up looking really foggy once it's dry, you may want to try rubbing it again with the wet water one more time. And then I also like to apply a coat of Mod Podge to seal over that, and that sometimes brings out the darkness of the ink as well. To finish off this piece, I just added on a little stem of this faux eucalyptus, as well as one of the magnolia blossoms to coordinate with the centerpiece that we already made. And that's how we used just a few supplies, including some paint, pretty napkin, an image transfer, to create a lovely floral-inspired farmhouse set of crafts. This is just so fun now for the winter, but I think it will hold all the way through the spring and well into the summer. I don't even see why we would put this away. We hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe for more nature-inspired DIY and craft ideas. Happy crafting! Bye!